Women of Reddit, what has been your worst nice guy experience? A long time ago, a guy in my group project insisted on driving me home afterwards because he didn't want me to walk in the rain. How nice of him. The next time our group met up, he wanted to drive me home again, but I declined because I was going to a friend's place. He blew the duck up at me and said the only reason I wouldn't date him, first of all, a ride home is not a date, dude, was because he was Middle Eastern. I already had a boyfriend at the time who was Lebanese. I thought that would shut him up. But then he said that white women shouldn't be with Arabic men. Like, you just wanted to date me a second ago, pal. Another dude in the group thankfully suggested subtly that we finish the project via email. A true bro. I'll never forget you. Guy whose name I forgot. When visiting my hometown, an old guy friend from high school contacted me saying him and a group of old high school buddies were going to a coffee house at our old school, then to a bar after, and they wanted me to come. When I got there, it was just him. He told me the one person cancelled and the two others were running late and would meet us at a bar after the show. I always felt comfortable with this guy, so I didn't mind sitting in the back of the coffee house and catching up. After the coffee house, he offered to follow me home so I could drop off my car. He didn't drink, but I did at the time. He said he would be my DD. I thought that would be alright. My mom knew my plans. We get to the bar and a couple of friends are there waiting on us with drinks for me. I have about 4 mixed drinks. Our 2 friends take off, but my ride was finishing up a game of pool, so I waited. He ordered me another drink even though I said I had enough and got frustrated and offended that I wouldn't drink it since he paid for it. I caved in and drank it. After driving me home, he tried to bang me in my driveway. Hands all over the place, kissing me while I pushed him away. I had to slap him across the face to get him to stop. After slapping him, he itched about how lucky I should feel because he was a really nice guy and treated me like a princess all night. He also screamed at me from the car window that I was a slut. He was not a nice guy. I was getting tutored at school one time and the guy who was tutoring me was asking what my plans were for the weekend. I assumed it was small talk, so I just said the usual. Studying, working, hanging out with my boyfriend. He got so pissed. He started to rant on and on about how girls like me were all the same. Always using guys and then never giving anything in return. That he helped me, so the least I could do was go out on a date with him. That he's so nice and no girls ever want to date him. Probably because we all like jerks, his words. He said I was a fake tease too for allowing him to tutor me. He got kind of aggressive too and started to slam things around, shove chairs into the tables and stuff. I noped out of there so fast. I had one guy who had a crush on me completely stop talking to me when I started dating someone else. But on my birthday I got a huge box in the mail from him. It had a ton of weird stuff in it. Bed sheets, a stuffed giraffe, an old journal from a young grade that they had to write in 4 points with new entries made about me, all written in his kid style. A framed collage of pictures of me and screenshots of our text conversations. A letter explaining the giraffe begged to be sent to me, as well as congratulating me on my 4-month anniversary. I called him immediately to tell him that it was inappropriate, and he called my boyfriend and got into a fight with him or something, and then posted on Facebook about how he went out of his way to get a nice gift for a girl who didn't appreciate it. Edit, a word. Also, since it seems unclear, Nasego I live 300 miles away, so the fight was just a phone conversation that I wasn't around to hear. Oh. And the bed sheets were his. Not new. Unopened bed sheets. I had a random guy add me on Facebook. One mutual friend, but nothing else in common. No idea who he was. So, logically, I ignored the request. The next day I start getting messages. I know someone as beautiful as you would never talk to me, but I have to try. Girls like you are the worst. You could at least say hi. Bitch. I'm the best you could get. I blocked him. Was thoroughly creeped out for a while after that. Who does that? I left a university club meeting and the organizer told all the guys to walk the girls to their cars to protect them. One guy walked me to my car and then pinned me against my door, refusing to let me get into my car until I kissed him and agreed to go on a date with him. He kept saying he was a nice guy. He walked me to my car. He was a gentleman. I kept begging him to let me go and that he was hurting me. He had pinned my arm behind my shoulder. My shoulder hurt for a week. I finally relented and let him kiss me while I cried and lied that I would go on a date with him. When I finally got home and told my friends what happened, they said, "Why didn't you just agree to go on a date with him? He's such a nice guy." That happened 10 years ago and it still scares me. First few weeks in freshman year of high school. Was waiting at the lunch line when a senior comes up to me and offers to pay my lunch. Despite being 14. I can still tell he's obviously going to try to make a move or something, but I say duck it. Free lunch, right? Anyway, he buys my lunch and I expect him to ask my number or some other petty sheet. But this Methodicus says, and I quote, "Meet me in the bathroom after lunch." I've had a number of guys who I went on a date with who insisted on paying for my meal or drinks or whatever, who then turn around and get really angry if I don't want to hook up with them because I owe them. When I point out that I'm not a prostitute, they always tell me how I should be more appreciative of how nice and kind they were to me. I always stop dating for a while after this happens. It was high school. I considered the guy my best friend. And when he revealed that he had feelings for me, I rejected him and asked if he was comfortable staying just friends. He insisted that it was cool that I didn't feel the same way and he wanted to keep hanging out platonically. He was mostly pretty okay about it. Until I started seeing a girl. Wow. Even girls are getting a shot with you before I do. Huh. He joked. I told him that my new relationship was a secret because she and I were both still in the closet. He was the only one I told. Since, you know, he claimed to be my best friend. By the next week, everyone in our entire hometown knew. Faced tons of backlash. Got homophobic slurs muttered about me in the hallways at school. Good times. TLDR rejected a guy and he ducking outed me. Many moons ago I met a guy on OkCupid and went on exactly one date. We had an okay time until the end of the date when he would not let go of me. As in, hugged me and wouldn't stop. At first I kind of laughed. But it quickly accelerated to okay. Ducking let me go now. He let go about 2 seconds before I went screaming bloody murder ballistic. And suffice it to say I was done with this guy forever. He sent me 3 emails that night. 3 the next day. And kept this up for about a month. Then about 3 months later he emailed me again. To see if you've decided you're into nice guys after all. In high school I befriended a guy at work named Tyler. He went to a different school, but I had previously worked with his neighbor who was also a girl like myself. She also grew up knowing my friend Danielle, so we'd all hang out pretty frequently, and because I and his neighbor didn't have driver's licenses, he or Danielle would typically pick us up and drop us off to hang out. Well, we were all on great terms, hanging out for like 6 months. Then I started hearing stuff about him having a crush on me, but I ignored it because I knew I had no romantic feelings for him and he never put moves on me, so I assumed it was just people teasing. He ended up asking me to hang out, just the 2 of us, while we were at work, and a male co-worker butted in to save me from what I later realized was an attempted date. The co-worker said we had a date together that night and Tyler never said anything. Until he freaked the duck out on me via text a few days later about how I never gave him a chance and that I only liked the other co-worker because he was rich, good looking, and drove a nice car. It was awful. I warned his neighbor and my friend Danielle and they chose to ignore it until he had the same reaction to each of them dating other people. In a good twist of fate though, I did end up going on that date with the other co-worker and we're now married 10 years later with baby number 2 due Valentine's Day. I cosplay and have a page on Facebook for it. Some guy found it and proceeded to non-stop message me 24/7. Tell me how beautiful I was. How much he loved my costumes. etc. Anyways, I mainly cosplay from League of Legends and I have a group of 5 of us that normally play together. This guy wanted to play with us so bad, so I finally agreed to one game and invited him to the Skype call. He used a low voice changer in the call and was saying all this weird shit to my friends and in all chatting game. He kept going on about how hot I was and all that shit. Turns out he added my friend before the game started and private messaged him saying her laugh makes me come in my pants. My friend took a picture of it and sent it to me and shit got real awkward trying to get him to leave. We invited my boyfriend at the time and that just pissed him off and he put on another voice changer on top of the low one so it sounded super ducked up. It ended at him threatening me saying that he knew where I lived. Was going to come grate me. Torture me. Murder me. And then duck my corpse. TLDR, cosplay fanboy got upset I had a boyfriend and threatened to grape and kill me. He seemed nice at first. We dated for maybe 2 weeks. I wasn't feeling it. So rather than lead him on, I broke up with him. He went on to tell his whole Christian Bible college about how the woman he was going to marry had broken his heart and that they should pray for me. He then texted me every few days to tell me that he was praying for me and that he's here for me whenever I'm ready. I blocked him after a few of those. Because I'm happily in a great relationship now. But he still posts stuff on Instagram about me and how I broke his heart. It's awkward. I too dated someone for 2 weeks who turned out to be obsessed and used weird religious beliefs to try and convince me we were brought together by fate because we were together in a previous life. I've been married for 12 plus years to someone else and I still occasionally get random texts or emails from him. Even though he is also married now. To a woman with the same name as me. Who looks very similar to me and they have a kid. Earlier this year he texted me with some nonsense about how I'm permanently damaging my soul by shutting him out of my life. Joined student government and made a new friend the first day. He asked for my number so we could easily contact each other considering we were working in the same department. Figured it made sense so I gave him my number. An hour later I get a text message asking if I wanted to hang out sometime. Still didn't think much of it and figured I would reply later after class. Around half an hour later he sends me another text asking if I was interested and why I hadn't replied yet. Then he calls me. I don't pick up because I'm creeped out at this point. He leaves me a voicemail and starts flipping out on me saying I should just be upfront with him instead of leading him on. Immediately calls back again and leaves a voicemail asking if I'm still interested, if so I should let him know ASAP. Leaves another voicemail and gets angry at me saying that I'm not worth it and tells me I lost my chance. Then he calls again. I decline the call and block his number. Never saw him in student government after that day though. I'm a les. Have been out for a long time so it's not a secret or anything. Back in uni there was this dude who was a mutual friends with my friend group. I got along with him okay before things came to a head around my last 2 years. Apparently he had been having a crush on me and had been resenting that I wouldn't reciprocate. Proceeded to tarnish my reputation with my friends and got them to basically up and abandon me. When I met my current Sue and we were working towards getting together. He sent a former friend to tell my Sue that I'm a bad person. Good thing she didn't listen. We've been together for 3 years now. A past co-worker had a huge crush on me. He was very sweet but I would ignore his incessant messaging, and when he asked me if I received his messages that weekend, I came up with a basic excuse. Sorry but my phone is messed up and I don't receive messages on time. This ducking guy not only believes a terrible excuse, but he adds a phone line to his phone plan. Gets a great quality, brand new goddamn phone and surprises me with it at the end of my shift. As he stands beside my car with a bulgy-eyed stuffed animal and a T-Mobile box. I wanted to crawl into a hole. Long story short, let him down easy and he cried. No, he did not get watery-eyed. He ducking cried with snot coming out as I gave him a ride home because he had taken the bus for an added surprise so I wouldn't suspect he was there. Cringe. I went on some dates with a very nice guy, who naturally complained that girls didn't like him because he was too nice. The problem was that his idea of nice was avoiding confrontation. I did something that upset him, and instead of talking to me about it, he sent me this insanely long text message that came through scrambled and I could barely read it. So I say come over and we will talk about it. Shows up. Says basically nothing even when I am asking pointed questions based on what I was able to decipher from this crazy long text. Happened a second time and I gave up. He was nice, but that definitely wasn't the problem. It was that he never wanted to say something even mildly confrontational, which meant we couldn't ever talk about something we might disagree about. No way to move forward in a relationship like that. So now I'm just one more woman who didn't like him because he is too nice. I went on a date with a guy who did actually seem quite nice. Almost. Too nice. Such as over the top compliments every few minutes. Outright refusing to let me pay. I gave in because I didn't want to argue in front of people, and agreeing with my opinion on absolutely everything. At the end of the date I tell him that I'm sorry but I don't want a second date. Although I do agree to be friends when he asks if that's okay. Friends actually goes well. We hang out a couple more times and he's way less hot. 2 weeks later I go away for a week to Auckland. And shag a guy I met online while up there. Come back. And a couple of days pass, then I hang out with the first guy again. He asks how the trip went. I tell him what I got up to. And then it gets creepy. He tells me he can forgive me for cheating on him. Because he knows I'm the one. And that we're going to get married one day. As I'm sitting there with a look of WTF on my face. He continues that he understands that I only slept with someone because I needed a release since we hadn't consummated our future yet. But perhaps it was time because he didn't want us to get too old to be good parents. I was 20. I noped right the duck out of there. And for the next month or so I swear I caught glimpses of him hanging around my work and home. It's not that bad, but it just stuck with me. I was walking with my friend when a stranger passed us saying under his breath itches. Think they're better than me. Won't even say hello. It turns out he had said hi a few seconds earlier. 12 feet away from us. Out of our line of sight. While we were talking. And really quietly. I felt bad. He seemed like he was only in his early 20s and I'm sure he has self-esteem issues. Went on 2 dates with a guy and let him know I wasn't interested and didn't think we had much of a connection, but had the whole no hard feelings. Let's stay in touch as friends chat. A few months later he contacts me on Facebook to ask me how I'm going. Whether I got that job I wanted. etc. I figure. Wow, this is lovely. Could turn into a friendship. etc. Then one night out of the blue he asks if I could come over to his place to ride him and that he would do anything to get into my pants, and went into great detail about how he'd like to attack mine. So all that friendly banter, after I made it very clear that I wasn't interested, was just a ruse so he could proposition me for sex in the most explicit and desperate way when he felt a pang of horniness. Don't do this, people. It doesn't work. He thought being aware of the fact he was acting like a nice guy meant he could act like a nice guy. If he knew I was going out that night he'd check my Facebook to see if I added a guy. If I did, it invariably ended in one big sheet fight, and he's just the paranoid type. He's just a natural worrier. Why can't I deal with it? New Year's he posted a long-winded status about wishing he could cry less. How he should learn to ride a motorbike. I kissed a guy and mentioned I like guys who ride motorbikes once. Honestly, it took a long talk from a friend to realize what he was doing was emotional manipulation, not just being an ass. He'd been chasing me since I was 16 and he was 23. I cut him out of my life entirely and got a wonderful boyfriend. Lo and behold, not a day later, one long ass text about how I found my one and he's everything I'm not. Just what you wanted. How he got my number is beyond me. When I was 15 I was eating at our local Mexican restaurant with my friend, M18, and my husband, obviously pre-marriage, who was 20. Some guy in his 50s, tan. Unbuttoned Tommy Bahama shirt. Gold chain, you get the idea, came up and started talking to us about what we were doing that day and other awkward small talk. All the while focusing way too much on me. He left, and when we went to go pay, the waiter said he paid for your meal. The three of us were like, that was nice. Then the waiter looked uncomfortable and specified, not you two, just hers. I guess that's more of a creepy guy experience than a nice guy experience now that I think of it. My ex was a nice guy. But not in a good way. Used to wake up in the morning with about 100 text messages. Usually poems. He found out my work mail. And sent me poems there. He was overly controlling. I never got a minute to myself. He used to tell me that I was his savior. When I broke up with him, he told me, well, I guess I have nothing to live for now. Story time. I had this friend in high school, and we'll call him a friend. Quotes and all. Because I don't talk to him anymore, who I thought was a pretty chill dude. He was kind of a dork and didn't have a lot of friends. But I was kind of the same way, so I could relate. Anyway, towards the beginning of our senior year of high school, I started steadily dating another friend of ours who had asked me out a few weeks before. My friend flipped his lid. Now, this friend had also asked me out on a couple of previous occasions. But I'd always declined because I didn't see him as anything more than a buddy. So one evening I told him that I'd started dating this other person. And this guy just went off on me. Claiming that he had more of a right to date me because he'd known me longer. That he'd been a good friend to me. The works. It was a royal mess. That friendship somehow lasted another 2 years. I finally cut it off at the knees because he was an emotionally manipulative jerk who kept trying to horn in on my relationships and got jealous when I made new friends. Last year I dropped him like a bad habit and have never felt better. Don't remain friends with nice guys.